In this video, I'll be telling you all the things I wish I'd known when I first started training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Okay, let's get into it. Look for a gym with an introduction to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu course. This just isn't always something that you can do. If you live in a small town and there's only one Jiu Jitsu gym that's local to you, just go train there. If the only way you can train is by going to the gym that's right by where you work, just go train there. I personally did not train at a gym with an introductory program. I do notice a difference between myself and those that did when it comes to foundational skills. And to be perfectly honest with you, when it comes to coordination, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're safe. Let's say that your opponent has your arm. They don't know what your point of flexion is. Their job is to try and get the submission. Your job is to try and escape or tap. When you're a white belt, people are sometimes terrified of you. No. I know that sounds counterintuitive. We white belts aren't most of us used to sparring. We're kind of reactive. We sometimes do silly things such as very explosive movements which aren't so technical or aren't technical at all. I once saw a white belt rolling with their eyes closed. Do not do that. The more experienced the person is, the safer they are to roll with, generally speaking. You're going to need to wash your gi after every training session. Do not wear the same gi on Tuesday and then just think that it's okay to wear it on Thursday. It often results in a lot of laundry. For that reason, you need half as many gis as you are training days per week. If you're training twice a week, you need 1 gi. If you're training 3 times a week, you probably need 2. And if you're training 4 days a week, you need 2 gis, and so on and so forth. Different jiu-jitsu gyms have different styles. You're a different you from everyone else. You need a gym that suits your needs and your objective. Maybe you have a background in judo and you want a gym that embraces that. Maybe you're looking to train MMA in the future, so you'll be looking for a place with a strong no-gi program. Perhaps your priority is learning jiu-jitsu specifically for self-defense, or maybe you want to compete. Some gyms are really big, which means you can have a lot of training partners. Some gyms are really small, which means that you get to be part of this tight-knit community and you'll know everyone really well. Some gyms only train no-gi, some gyms predominantly train gi, but they'll have 1 no-gi class per week. I would suggest shopping around before you pick your jiu-jitsu gym, because to have a community, all you really need to have is a common goal. Once you train at a gym, it kind of feels like family. Before you settle down and get to know people, make sure you found the right place for you. For the love of God, do not train if you have a skin infection. Do not train if you have a skin infection. Training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is really, really hard. And say you have a bad experience at the beginning, maybe you get injured or you go to a class and just feel really overwhelmed. I think it's easy for people to have that experience and think that training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu just isn't for them. If you want to train, then it is for you. Definitely persevere if you have an early bad experience. And there are some coaches out there who will respond to their frustrated students by saying, training jiu-jitsu is hard. Training jiu-jitsu is hard, to cover up the fact that they don't necessarily have the best teaching methodology. So look for coaches who love teaching jiu-jitsu and are willing to meet you where you're at least some of the time. For your own personal comfort, I would suggest investing in arnica, Germaline, extra shampoo, extra face wash, and extra conditioner. Rank and respect are very important in Brazilian jiu-jitsu training culture. At the end of class, people line up in belt order. Black belts on one end, white belts on the other. Find out what those rules of etiquette are at your gym. You can go in and ask someone. I'm sure they'd really appreciate you wanting to be respectful and adhere to those rules. It's okay if nothing makes sense for a really long time. No one is invincible. Everybody gets tapped by somebody. There's a robust learning curve between belts. Most people stay at white belt for 1 to 4 years. The same applies for blue, purple, and brown belt. On average, it takes about 10 to 12 years to become a black belt. So this is a long-term investment. Our only job as white belts is to absorb and be a sponge. Sometimes that's easier said than done, so write things down or just try to remember them somehow. If you're interested, I have a video on how I keep my jiu-jitsu training notebook. While it's true that technique beats size and strength, there are weight categories for a reason. One of my coaches always says 10 kilograms is the equivalent of a belt. So let's say that somebody weighs 60 kilos and they're training with someone who weighs 70 kilos. That person who weighs 70 kilos just got a belt in terms of their ability of jiu-jitsu. And while men and women can train very well together, there is a reason that men and women don't compete against each other in jiu-jitsu, just as they don't in any other sport. The mats should be the only part of the jiu-jitsu gym that you walk barefoot on. It might be a good idea to invest in a pair of flip-flops for that journey between the mats and the bathroom and the mats and the changing room. You don't have to roll with people if you don't want to. I'm going to say that again because I think it's really important. You do not have to roll with anyone if you don't want to. If someone gets upset about you not wanting to roll with them, that says more about them than it does about you. That's something that they need to work on, not you. Feeling frustrated is part of learning jiu-jitsu, and sometimes you just have to literally move through that frustration. Work as a team with your training partner when you're learning a new technique, piece by piece. Girls who want to train jiu-jitsu, unless a gym is newly established or it's really small, or for whatever reason it's in an area that's mostly populated by men, if there isn't a female brown belt there, if there is not one woman who is a brown belt, that is a red flag. The reason for that is that it means that no woman who started training there wanted to continue training there. Think about it. They all left. Why did they leave? I have no idea, but I don't want to train at a place where a bunch of women left. I know this sounds really harsh, and there will always be exceptions, but we are women in a male-dominated sport, and we have to take care of ourselves. Also, there are so many awesome gyms out there. Go train with those guys like I do. If your rash guard and gi still smell after you wash them, you do not need to throw them out, but you do need to do this. Apply a solution of 1 part vinegar, 3 parts water to the particularly smelly parts of the gi. Leave it to soak for 4 hours, then wash it as normal. If you don't use this trick, your gi will come out of the washing machine smelling, no matter how many times it goes in. If you do use this trick, it will come out smelling like new, and you'll be able to wear it to training without stinking up the gym. Your objective is basically to be as clean and nice smelling as possible when you walk onto those mats. Brush your teeth or use mouthwash, wear deodorant, maybe even some perfume or cologne, whatever you need to do. There's a shift after 6 months. When I first started training jiu-jitsu, one of the assistant coaches gave me a great piece of advice: just commit to 6 months. So I decided to train twice a week for my first 6 months of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I'm so glad I did that, because when it got to the 5th month, I honestly wanted to stop. I thought to myself, this is so hard. None of this is making sense. I've committed 5 months of my life to this, but I kept going. And at the 6 months, literally at the 6 months, almost at the day, I don't know what this coach knew, there was just some small connection and things started to make sense a tiny bit, and learning jiu-jitsu came something which I thought I might be able to do. If someone who isn't a white belt gives you a piece of advice, just say thank you. Say it as a reflex, even if you feel irritated, because it's polite and they're probably right. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you want to follow me along on my jiu-jitsu training journey, go ahead and hit subscribe.